I am so excited for today's podcast episode because we are going to be talking about social media. Specifically, do you have to have a social media presence in order to grow your side hustle? We'll be talking about a philosophy that I have when it comes to social media that might be a little surprising to you. And make sure that you stay tuned until the end because I will be sharing 6 really big social media tips that I have for you when it comes to creating content. This is Rich Teachers with Becky Park. So in today's podcast episode, I will be speaking from the perspective of a teacher with a side hustle who benefited greatly from having a somewhat large presence on social media. For my reselling side hustle, I have I think it's a little over 23,000 followers on Instagram. My students tell me that makes me like a celebrity basically. And I'm like, okay, I'm not, but 23,000 over there. And that's like 6 to 7 years worth of followers. It's really not that many. I stopped really putting a lot of energy into Instagram once I started YouTube. And on YouTube, I have a little over 63,000 subscribers at the time of filming this episode. And again, that's for my YouTube channel about reselling. Now, I have very recently started this podcast. It's on YouTube. I have an Instagram for it. If you want to follow me on those different platforms, you can just follow me on Rich Teachers or Rich Teachers Co. everywhere. And we're going to be talking about both examples, the example of what I've been able to grow through my reselling business, as well as what I am currently trying to grow over here on Rich Teachers. We'll be looking at both of those as examples. So I guess the first question is, do you have to have a social media presence for all side hustles? And I would say no, you absolutely don't have to have a social media presence for every side hustle. I think of things like tutoring, or like if you're creating content for Teachers Pay Teachers, if you do real estate on the side of your teaching gig, which is amazing if you do, you don't really need a social media presence there. Reselling, that was my big side hustle that I still currently make a lot of money with. But I will say, even though you don't need a social media presence for those kinds of side hustles, a lot of the way that you drum up business for those kinds of side hustles is through word of mouth, or, when it comes to real estate or Teachers Pay Teachers, people just search for your services or what you've created in the search bar. But I will say, even with all of those examples, I do think that you can enhance or elevate your side hustle from what it is now to what it could be. And what I mean by that is, let's look at these examples again. With the example of my reselling business, there are plenty of resellers out there who do not have a social media presence. They just put their head down and they just do the work. They just, get as much stuff to sell online as possible, and they spend all of their free time taking pictures of their items, posting them online, shipping them out once it sells, and raking in the money. You don't need a social media presence in order to do that, because it's not like a lot of people buy things based off of what you're showing on your Instagram or on your YouTube. People are primarily going to buy from you based off of looking for said item in the search bar of eBay or Poshmark or wherever it is that they're shopping from. That being said, the way that I have elevated that side hustle of reselling with a social media presence is because I was able to grow on YouTube, for example. I was able to earn a secondary income through Google AdSense, through just making these videos and people watching them. I created a course a few years ago for other resellers like myself who wanted to start and grow their own YouTube channels about reselling. I have been able to do brand deals and sponsored videos with different brands. So because I decided to create a social media presence and position myself as an authority on the topic, specifically from the perspective of reselling part-time, I was able to make a lot more money than just from reselling by itself. Although I guess one could argue I would make more money reselling if I put that time into reselling. That being said, that's one example. Even with the example of real estate, I have actually watched videos. My family likes to travel a lot, and I will do deep dives into the different cities that we're going to visit. So for example, when we were getting ready to visit San Diego one year, I remember I looked up fun things to do in San Diego, and a few of the videos that I watched were great videos, had exactly the content that I was looking for, and they were created by real estate agents in the area. And they would end the video by saying, not only is San Diego a great place to visit, but it's a great place to live. And if you're looking for a home for you and your family, make sure to reach out to us, and they had their information in the description of the video. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like that is so smart, because if I were somebody looking to move to San Diego, that is the kind of content I'm looking for on YouTube, right? Like I'm looking up what are fun things to do with the family in San Diego, because that's something I'm thinking about as someone who might be moving to San Diego. I want to know that there are fun things to do with my kids. And if the person that gives me really good information on that topic also happens to be in real estate, and now I don't have to go on a hunt for a real estate agent because I've already grown to like and trust this person over the past 20 minutes that I was watching this video, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to reach out to that person and see if they can find me the perfect home in a great place for families in San Diego. So even though I'm pretty sure most real estate agents don't have a social media presence in terms of like a YouTube channel or an Instagram, I thought that was a brilliant way to elevate their business and get more out of it and reach more potential customers. On the flip side, I do think that there are some side hustles that absolutely do require a social media presence. For example, if you want to be a content creator, if you want to make money off of the content that you create, yeah, you're going to have to be on social media, and you'll have to pick your poison in regards to which social media platform you want to grow on. Also, if you want to be a coach or if you want to create courses, things like that, you have to have an audience that you're going to sell to. You have to have a way to position yourself as an authority in your niche in order for people to trust you and fork over the amount of money that you're asking them for to coach them or to take your course. Those are just not the type of things that most people find through a Google search. They want to know the person, they want to trust the person before they decide they're going to spend that much money and time with that person in the future. So while there are some side hustles that you can absolutely grow and build out without social media, there are some that you absolutely cannot. And even Alex Hormozi, he's one of the most famous and popular entrepreneurs right now. I think he got famous by like selling gyms. Like he would buy gyms for, it's almost like he would flip gyms. I don't really know. I don't know his whole story. I've seen some of his stuff, but even he shares about how reluctant he was to get on social media because he didn't think that it would help him grow his business. He really felt like it would be a waste of time to take time away from building the business to put into social media. But he said that the effects of being on social media and the amount of exposure he was able to gain to more and more people, to a wider audience, he said it was a no-brainer. Once he did finally get on social media, he was like, why didn't I do this before? So I don't know how you feel about social media today, but I'm going to share one philosophy with you when it comes to especially starting out on social media. If you're just feeling lost and you're feeling like, I don't even know how to get started, here is my biggest nugget of wisdom for you, and that is quantity over quality. Normally, that is looked at as just plain stupid. Like you wouldn't hear that and think to yourself, wow, she's really wise. Normally, you hear the opposite preached, which is quality over quantity. But I'm here to say, especially when you are in the position of just starting building your social media presence, I'm going to say quantity is king, because when you say to yourself, what matters is more versus being perfect, what matters more is just getting it done versus spending all this time trying to make something that is like the ideal piece of content, what's going to happen is you're going to, one, figure out what kind of content you like to create. Two, you're going to figure out what kind of content people like to receive from you. And three, you're just going to get those reps in so that you get better and better and better. It is plain insanity to expect that at the very beginning, you're going to create amazing pieces of content, especially if you've never done it before. The first pieces of content that you create are just going to be garbage. And the fastest you can accept that and move forward with the plan of just making garbage for a little bit before you can start making things that you're really proud of, the easier it's going to be to get to a place where you're making content that you're proud of. There's a book that I'm reading right now, and I'm really excited to get to the end of it because I would love to do an episode just about the lessons that I've learned from this book. The book is Million Dollar Weekend by Noah Kagan, and I will have it linked down in the description and in the show notes. It's a really good book so far. I'm like 2/3 of the way through. But one thing he shared in there with this philosophy of quantity over quality was this story about a photography professor who kind of split his class into two, and he gave half of the class the assignment to take 100 pictures by the end of the semester. Didn't matter if they were really good or not, just they had to turn in 100. And then he gave the other half of the class an assignment to just turn in one picture by the end of the class. It just had to be really good. And surprise, surprise, at the end of the class, the kids who took 100 pictures had way better pictures than the kids that just tried to focus on getting that one perfect picture. And that's because they had to take 100 pictures. They had 100 reps. They had 100 opportunities to try new things, to fail, to surprise themselves, to take pictures even when they didn't feel like it, to take pictures when they did feel motivated. They just took 100 pictures, and with each picture, even if each picture wasn't amazing, with each picture that they took, they grew, they improved, and by the end of that semester, they had a lot of great pictures to show for their time in that class versus the kids who spent the entire semester just trying to get that one perfect picture and stressing out over feeling like, well, this isn't it. I haven't gotten it yet. I don't know what to do. And they were paralyzed with fear because they were trying to achieve perfection. The great thing, especially if you are brand new to social media, is that nobody knows you. Nobody is expecting anything. So you have complete freedom to do whatever you want and to just try things. You're free to make mistakes. You're free to even kind of try out different parts of your personality. For example, sometimes I show up on social media. I'm talking about my reselling, Instagram and YouTube. Sometimes I show up, and I would say the majority of the time I show up as this side of me. You know, I'm here to teach. I'm here to give you information. It's a little bit more formal. I'm trying to use outlines and structure. I mean, I try to keep it relaxed, but it is definitely more of like a, hey, I've got something important to tell you, quiet down and listen. Like, this is my like teacher vibe, right? This is exactly how I am in the classroom. Versus sometimes I will bring out my really silly side, my fun side, my just kind of like off the wall goofy side. That side of me shows up more in shorts, or it'll show up more just like in little bits that I'll do in the midst of videos. It just kind of depends. But you can try out like the different parts of your personality, bring those to the table and see what resonates with your audience. You have freedom to do that because as of right now, there's nobody expecting anything from you. Nobody is going to be upset that you didn't deliver X, Y, and Z because they don't know who you are. They're not expecting you to deliver anything in the first place. And this is a great time to make mistakes, to experiment, to fail forward. And what Noah Kagan says in the book that I agree with wholeheartedly is he says, commit to trying something at least 100 times. If you're going to start a YouTube channel, create at least 100 YouTube videos, which means you're going to be at it for probably at least a good year or so. If you're going to try TikTok, commit to at least 100 pieces of content. And that goes for anything that you're doing related to your side hustle before you decide to give it up permanently and say to yourself, I'm done, this is going nowhere. Commit to at least 100. Because who knows, maybe all the way up to the 99th video that you created, you just weren't able to gain any momentum. You weren't able to really get very many people to sub to your channel. You've been at it for a year and you're no closer to being monetized. And maybe it's that 100th video that will blow up for you. Maybe by that 100th video, you'll have done what you need to do in order for people to like you and to trust you and to hit that subscribe button, to share that video. Maybe by that 100th video, you will have learned enough to create the kind of content that one, you can be proud of, and two, that other people are excited to consume. Commit to doing whatever it is that you're trying to do. Maybe it's Teachers Pay Teachers. Commit to creating 100 different things for your Teachers Pay Teachers account. Is that what it's called? I don't know. I don't do Teachers Pay Teachers. But commit to 100 things before you call it quits, because you have to allow yourself time to grow and learn and improve. And as you're doing that, track the data. Like, create a detailed account of what it is that you're doing and how that content is performing. So for example, I think that even within the content that I create for my reselling YouTube channel, there are different categories that my content falls under. There is content that is meant for my existing subscribers, people who show up for me week after week. And it's because it's the kind of content that kind of chronicles my reselling journey and business. So for me, that video that I do on a weekly basis is my What Sold video. I talk about everything that sold for me in the week prior, and I share all my numbers and all of the information about the pieces that sold. And some people love that kind of information, and they love just kind of that like weekly check-in with me of how things are going on my end. It's like a ritual. It's a part of their week at this point, right? I also have content that is strategically created for new viewers to attract new subscribers. Things that are like how to start on Poshmark, how to start reselling, how to, run a sale on eBay. These kinds of videos I make, yes, for my existing audience, but I also make those kinds of videos to attract new viewers to my channel. I'll do more laid back videos that are more like a day in the life or ship with me. Again, those are just kind of more conversational. They're a little bit more geared towards people who have already subscribed to my channel. They like me, they just want to hang out with me. I have videos that are just pure background noise video for those in my niche. Things like thrift haul videos. I just share everything that I picked up at the thrift store that day. I have different kinds of videos that are supposed to accomplish different things. And at this point, after having, created content for that YouTube channel for a little over 5 years, I have a general idea, a pretty good idea going into the filming of that video, how that video is going to perform for me. I know, for example, when I create a video that is more of like a how-to type video, I know that at first it's not going to perform very well. And that's because the first people to see my video are the ones who are subscribed to me. And at this point, if they've been following me for a long time, they don't need a video about how to start on Poshmark. Chances are they've already started on Poshmark. That's why they're watching me, because they're kind of along for the ride. But I know that if I wait a couple months, that video is going to start to gain traction, because if I did a good job with it, people are going to find that video in search. They're going to find it when they search for the term how to sell on Poshmark on both Google and YouTube. And as my video starts getting hits that way, and people watch a good chunk of that video, and people leave comments and like the video, the YouTube algorithm is going to be like, oh, so for people who want to learn about Poshmark, this is a good video for them. And they'll start figuring out who to show that video to, because it maybe didn't do very well when they tried to show it to my audience at first. That's okay. They'll figure out who needs to see it. And I know that that number is going to kind of go like this. It'll kind of show that it's not performing very well, and then all of a sudden it will start to perform well. And on the flip side, I know that my What Sold videos, especially because they are about 1 week in a particular year, they'll do really well at first, and then no one is going to revisit that video a year or 2 years from now. And I know that because I studied the data. I looked at the analytics of those kinds of videos for 5 years at this point. And now I'm pretty good about foreseeing what's going to happen. But I share that with you to say that at least the social media platforms that I'm pretty familiar with, which are Instagram and YouTube, they have some great analytics. I would say YouTube's analytics far outweighs Instagram's, but they give you so much insight as to who your audience is, how your audience likes to engage with your content, and you'll very quickly start to figure out what kind of content people like to see from you. But even more so when I'm starting out, I would, in a spreadsheet or something, I would keep track of the content that I'm creating, kind of the category that that piece of content falls under, and how that content does in terms of gaining you subscribers or followers, in terms of number of likes, in terms of how much it is shared. If you can keep track of those kinds of things, even on your own, so that you can start seeing some of the trends and the data from your own spreadsheet, I think you're going to have such an advantage when it comes to figuring out what to lean into and maybe what kinds of content to step away from when it comes to growing your social media presence. Now, you might be asking yourself, where should I start? What platform should I start on? Because there are a good number. There's Facebook, there's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's Instagram. I'm sure I'm missing something. There's LinkedIn. There are a lot of places you can go to build a social media presence, to become an authority in your niche. I would say start with the social media platform that you are most familiar with, the one that you use the most as a consumer. For me, when I started, that was Instagram, and it was Facebook, actually. I used a lot of Facebook back in the day. I still kind of do, but Instagram is where I would go to, see cute pictures of my kids' friends and to get recipes and watch like short little workout videos. I knew from being on Instagram how to like photos. I knew how to leave comments. I knew how to visit people's link in bio in order to get to the links that they were talking about. I knew Instagram as a consumer. And so for me to get on the other side of things and become a content creator on Instagram, it was much more natural because I knew what the Instagram user was looking for. I knew what was attractive to those on Instagram because I was able to think about it as a consumer as well. And when you are trying to grow a social media presence, personally, I would recommend starting on one. Once you get really comfortable with one platform and you have a schedule down for, creating content and getting it posted, because you may not think it's going to be something that takes up a lot of time, but it really does. It really takes up a lot of not just actual time in your day, but also mental capacity. And you just want to make sure that you have the bandwidth to do what it is that you're setting out to do. And therefore, I would start with one platform, and I would just start with the one that you are the most familiar with. Now, like I said, I have somewhat of a following for my reselling side hustle on YouTube and Instagram right now. However, I started Rich Teachers, the podcast, about, like a month and a half ago at this point. We are still kicking it. And if you've taken a chance on me, I cannot even begin to explain how thankful I am for you and allowing me into your earbuds and headphones. I really do not take that for granted. But this is brand new. And as of today, this is February 24th. As of this moment, as I sit down to film, on YouTube, I have 154 subscribers and I have 44 followers on Instagram. And I'm not even going to lie to you. I did tell my reselling audience that I was doing this over here. A lot of those people are probably from the reselling side of things. But here's what I'm going to do. I am going to do a challenge for myself, and I invite you to participate with me because I think we're both going to grow a lot by doing this. I am going to do a week-long challenge because at this moment in time, that's all that I know I have the bandwidth for. But my challenge is going to be on my Rich Teachers channel. I am going to post 2 times on my Instagram and YouTube. It's going to be the same pieces of content. I'm not creating 4 pieces of content a day, but I'm going to post 2 pieces of content to both YouTube and Instagram daily for 7 days. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to create 2 shorts or 2 reels. Shorts are like those vertical videos that you see on YouTube. They're kind of in their own feed. You'll see them pop up too when you search for something on YouTube, but they're like those shorter videos, hence the name shorts. They're really YouTube's response to TikTok, but they're those shorter vertical videos. I'm going to post 2 of those on YouTube every day, and I'm going to take those 2 same shorts and post them on Instagram as Reels. Reels, again, are Instagram's answer to TikTok, those short videos that just took over the world by storm because we have very short attention spans. And I think at this point, I think Reels and Shorts can be up to, I don't even want to say a number because I feel like I'm going to be wrong. It used to be that they could only be a minute long. I know that they can be even longer now. I don't remember the exact length, but for this challenge, I'm going to post 2 pieces of content, the same 2 pieces of content, to YouTube as Shorts and over on Instagram as Reels. And I'm being strategic about that because The data says that shorts are one of the easiest ways to grow your YouTube channel because YouTube is actively pushing shorts in front of their audience. Again, in response to TikTok and trying to keep up with them, they know that people are willing to engage in shorts in a way that maybe they're not willing to engage in long form videos on YouTube. And furthermore, people are going to be much more willing to watch your content as a content creator that they don't know if it's 30 seconds long, if it's 45 seconds long versus if it's 30 to 45 minutes long. And on top of that, YouTube is just going to do a lot of that work for you. YouTube is going to help push your videos out in front of people. You just want to make sure that your title, your description, maybe you have a couple hashtags, you want to make sure that you're giving YouTube some information about what that video is about and who it is for so that they know who to show that video to. But the reason why I'm choosing shorts on the YouTube side of things is because that is the type of content right now that YouTube is really pushing. And the same goes for Instagram. Again, Instagram came out with Reels not too long ago in response to TikTok just owning them and stealing a lot of their users. And as a result, in the same way that YouTube really promotes shorts, Instagram really promotes Reels. At this point, there are not even very many creators just posting pictures the way that they used to on Instagram because everyone on Instagram knows Reels is king right now. That is what Instagram is pushing. That is what's going to help you grow the most. And again, when it comes to creating content on Instagram, you just want to make sure that you're very clear in your description with your hashtags, who that content is for, so that when Instagram goes to show that particular audience your content, those people are willing to consume it because it was made for them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post 2 shorts and 2 reels every day for a week. I'm going to start on the day that this gets uploaded, which will be the 25th. And on that day, if I have a different number of subs on YouTube or Instagram, I will use that number as my baseline. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a content calendar for myself, meaning I'm going to schedule what kind of content I'm going to create for each day for one out of the 2 pieces of content that I create on a daily basis. So what I mean by that is I'm going to have a schedule for myself that says on Tuesday, I'm going to post something educational. On Wednesday, I'm going to post something inspirational. On Thursday, whatever, right? I'm going to go into this week with a plan in place. But then for that other piece of content, I'm going to leave room for myself to create something based on whatever happens that day or whatever inspires me that day. And the reason for that is because I want to see, when it comes to creating content for rich teachers, what works for me better. I'll be honest with you, I have tried creating a content plan for myself before for my reselling Instagram. And I think for the type of brain that I have, it actually puts too much pressure on me and it makes it more difficult to create content when I have such a rigid plan in place. But for some people, it's kind of like when you have a meal plan and you sit down on Sunday and you're like, here's everything that we're going to eat for the rest of the week. And you can go grocery shopping that day and get all the ingredients that you need for all the meals that you have in place. And it makes you feel better about the week because you know you won't have to use any decision-making skills or just any like thought when it comes to preparing meals for that day because you've already done all that work ahead of time. I know that's how my husband feels. He loves it, like the 2 weeks out of the year that we actually succeed in meal planning for the week because then he doesn't have to think about it. When it comes to Instagram, I have tried that. I have found, at least for my reselling Instagram, that just doesn't work for me because sometimes I'm looking at the schedule and it says, today you are going to create a motivational or inspirational piece of content for your audience. And I'm like, but I'm not feeling it. Like, that's not what I feel like making today. And it causes me to not create anything at all that day because that's what I was supposed to do. I can't do it. Therefore, I'm just not going to do anything. And if you were to study my Rich Teacher's Instagram right now, you'd be like, she has not been doing a very good job of posting to this account. And I wonder if it's because maybe for this topic, for this niche, maybe it would serve me better to have a plan in place so that I don't really have to think so hard each day about the kind of content that I want to create, but it's already been planned out for me. On the flip side, the reason why that second piece of content I am leaving alone, I'm not planning it ahead of time, is so I can also practice on a daily basis, just coming up with something on the fly and allowing myself to be motivated by whatever happened that day or by what I'm thinking or feeling in that particular moment. And I want to give myself the freedom to create content in that way as well, to see if that works better for me as a content creator when it comes to creating content for teachers who want to grow their side hustles. I don't know yet with this particular niche how my brain works and what's best for my creativity, so I want to try both things. And if you want to join this challenge with me, I invite you to click on the link in the show notes or in the description of this video. It'll be called 1 Week Social Media Challenge. And what I'll do is I will actually send you a PDF of my content calendar that I am planning for my Rich Teachers Instagram and for my shorts, so that if you need some motivation, you can just copy my schedule exactly. We can just literally post the same kinds of content about our niches at the same time. And what I want you to do with me as well is mark how many subs or followers you're starting with. And then at the end of this week-long challenge, let's see how many we end up with. Let's record our growth so we can see exactly what kind of impact posting twice a day to our accounts can have for our social media presence. And let me just say, I will never be the person that says you need to post 2 times a day and post your stories all day long in order to grow, and that's the most important thing. You will never hear me say that because I cannot do that myself. Again, I have a full-time job as a high school choir teacher. I have a YouTube channel about my reselling journey. I'm starting this. I have a family. My kids do gymnastics and volleyball. Like, I am in the gym all the time with my kids, watching them hit balls and do flips and stuff like that. I don't have the time to do that either, and I highly doubt that you do. But I just want to give you a little kickstart, a kick in the butt. And honestly, this is a kick in the butt for me too, to say, hey, let's get some momentum here when it comes to our social media presence. And not only that, but let's try creating different kinds of content, see what we enjoy creating, and see what our audience likes as well. And throughout this week, what I also want you to keep track of is what kind of content out of everything that you're posting performs the best. You might actually find, as I have in the past, that the clips that you create on the fly actually do much better than the things that you put a lot of time and energy into. I remember over winter break, my mother-in-law and my mother were in town. I keep all of the clothes that I am waiting to photograph for my reselling business in my basement. And my mother and my mother-in-law know this. And so they like to go down into the basement whenever they come visit and look through my racks to see if there's anything that they would like. And they did that together over winter break. They came back upstairs with armfuls of clothing, and they sat at the couches literally on this side of me, just kind of looking over the things that they had bought from my basement, from my reselling business. I took like a 7-second video of the two of them just looking at their clothes. My mom was so serious about it. I don't know, like she was just looking at it as if she had just bought it at a Macy's, and she was checking it for quality and making sure there was nothing wrong with it lest she has to return it or something. I took a 7-second video and I posted that to my Instagram. It wasn't something that I had planned for the day. I didn't know that they were going to do that. It was just really funny to me at the moment. So I took a 7-second video. I put what I thought was a pretty funny caption, and that video did pretty well for me on Instagram. Another video that I just kind of made on the fly, I went to Urban Outfitters with my daughter, and I was just appalled at the clothes that I was seeing there. Like, it was just very poor quality. I'm older than their ideal customer base, and so a lot of the prints and styles just didn't make sense to me. And I started the video showing myself inside Urban Outfitters with the caption, something along the lines of, when you're too old to shop at Urban Outfitters or something like that. And then I showed like 2-second clips of the clothing that I was most offended by with my own little captions along the way and just like, funny music in the background. That video took off for me in a way that no video ever has before. I mean, it got millions and millions of views. It was shared so many times. I got so many followers because of it, so many comments. And I did not wake up that morning being like, okay, the plan for today is to go inside of an Urban Outfitters. In fact, I actually tried to replicate that video. I went back to Urban Outfitters not long after, and nobody cared about that video. And I've also had tremendous success with some content that I have planned out. You know, I went in to the thrift store with the intention of filming a Thrift with Me short video, and those have done really well for me. So I've found success through both avenues, but I share those stories and those examples to say, try it all. Try all of the things to see what you enjoy, to see what works best with your brain and the way that your creativity flows. And then most importantly, to see what the audience likes to receive from you, what they like to consume, what they like to like and share and comment on, because that's how you grow on social media, is by creating shareable, likable, commentable, that's not really a word, but content that people can comment on. That's the kind of content that Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and all those different places, that's the kind of content that they're going to reward. So if you want to be a part of that challenge with me, definitely click the link in the description or show notes. And if you have a friend that you feel like could benefit from this as well, have them join you too. Tell them, hey, we are creating 2 reels every day for just 1 week. We're going to do this together and see how much we can grow our social media. Have them do it with you. Make sure to share this podcast episode with them so that they can get the same tips that you're getting, and make sure to share that link with them so that they can get the same PDFs as well. Now, I told you I was going to end the video with a few tips for how to grow on social media, how to grow on YouTube or Instagram or where have you. And these tips are not really in any sort of order. They're just tips that I thought of when planning out this podcast episode. But the first thing is make content for your ideal audience. You don't want to just, do the latest TikTok dances or do the latest trends just for the sake of jumping on those things, if by doing so, you're not actually putting yourself and your content in front of the people that you want consuming your content. So let's use the example of baking. If that is your side hustle, you are an amazing baker and you bake all these amazing things and you want to sell them. It doesn't make sense for you to do the latest TikTok dance trend and it has nothing to do with baking. Like, you're just dancing. And maybe you're a good dancer, but the people who are going to watch that and maybe follow you as a result, they are not watching you because you're showing off all of your baked goods or because you have tips about how to bake sourdough bread better, or they're watching you because of your dancing. And when you do create content about your baked goods, they're not going to care because that's not what they were there for. You know what I'm saying? So when you create content, you want to make sure that you are creating content with your ideal audience in mind. If you are hoping to drum up business for your baking business, then sure, you can look at popular TikTok trends, but you want to make sure that there is a baking element to it, like a baking twist. But every time you create something, you just want to have that ideal customer or that ideal audience member in mind and create content for that person. My next tip, we kind of talked about this already, but track the data. Look at what's performing well for you and then double down and create more and more of that kind of content. But also allow yourself to try different things, because you might surprise yourself. You might think to yourself, I have to create this kind of content. This is what everyone in my niche does. But try different things and then see what the data tells you. You never know until you try. My next piece of content is to try and create your content in something neutral like CapCut or on iMovie, something that isn't branded. And what I mean by that is I, for example, like to use Instagram to create reels. I've learned how to use their little video editor and it makes sense to me. It's simple. And I like using that more than the shorts version of that on YouTube. And I like it more than using CapCut. My all-time favorite, honestly, is iMovie, but it's a little bit harder to do. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but I used to create reels on Instagram and then I would just download them from Instagram and upload that file to YouTube as a short. The issue is there is an Instagram brand on that video now because it was downloaded from Instagram using Instagram's editing software and whatnot. And so that Instagram brand will show up on the video even when you're watching it on YouTube. I don't think YouTube really likes that, and it makes it kind of weird for the audience as well. You see a lot of people doing that with videos that they create on TikTok as well. They'll download it from TikTok and then it'll say TikTok and you'll watch it on Instagram or on YouTube. There are many ways that you can get rid of that watermark, but I actually think it's just easier and better if you're able to create that piece of content somewhere neutral to begin with, like CapCut, like iMovie. The next piece of advice I have, especially when you're just starting out, is respond to each and every comment that you get on your content. In the beginning, there really isn't an excuse not to because you just don't have that many followers yet. So if anyone does take the time out of their day to comment on your post, to comment on your video, definitely make sure that you respond and try to go as deep as you can with each comment rather than just saying thank you. Let's use our baking example again. Maybe you showed a video of yourself decorating sugar cookies. I don't know what tools you use and all that stuff, but you showed like all the tools that you use and someone commented and said, "Oh, that's so pretty, nice job." You could just respond with a thank you. But you could also respond with, "Thank you so much. Are you a baker as well?" Or "Thank you so much. Are there any tips that you took away from this video?" You know, you could ask questions and maybe get that person to come back and respond to your question. And now you have a little bit of a conversation going. You want to go as deep as you can with the first people who take the time to engage with your content. That's how you grow a community. And the more comments and likes and engagement that there is on a piece of content, Instagram or YouTube or whatever platform is going to continue to push that particular piece of content within their algorithm. And you just want to help that along as much as you can. The last tip that I would give you is to batch create your content. And what that means is rather than taking time every day to say, okay, I'm going to create my 2 pieces of content today, if you have 2 hours on a Sunday, you could actually create all of your content on Sunday and then every day just schedule it out. And that becomes much easier than trying to find the mental bandwidth or the time in any given day to try to film the 2 pieces or however many pieces of content that you're wanting to upload that particular day. For the sake of the challenge, I'm probably going to create my 2 pieces of content on a daily basis. But if you want to batch create your content, I think that's a great thing to do. And in general, just a really smart way to create content for your social media platforms so that you can ensure that it gets done. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, I would so appreciate it if you wouldn't mind leaving me a 5-star review or subscribing on YouTube, leaving a comment, liking the video. All of those things help other people find my podcast. And like I said, if you want to join me on this 1-week social media challenge, definitely make sure to click on the link down below, sign up, and do it alongside me. Let's grow our social media presence together so that we can attract more customers to our side hustles and so that we have a little bit more authority in our niche. I'm so excited for the gains that you're going to make when it comes to your social media. I'm so excited to hear about all of your wins, and I'm excited to share my results with you in a couple weeks. So thank you so much. And as always, from me to you, thank you for being a teacher and for changing the lives of your students. I'll see you in the next one.